Welcome to LOA Today. Walt and life coach Joel Elston here. Today is Thursday, March the 1st, 2018, 8 a.m. Eastern Time. Your first daily dose of happy for the day, and happy March 1st. March is here. Winter's almost over. Spring's on the way. It's a good time, Joel.
It really is. At least in central Virginia for the last couple of weeks, we have had incredible weather. It's not been lows of 40, highs of 60. It's been beautiful.
Gorgeous. We're not quite that warm here in Connecticut, but yesterday we almost reached 60, and we've been generally in the 40s and 50s, so I'm getting out again. I'm liking that. My knees really need to get out. My legs need me to get out, but I'm finally getting out again, doing my walk, so that's a good thing. And
that's
I'm also
wonderful.
Yeah.
That's good news.
It really is good news. Yeah. I mean, I am very glad and very pleased when spring starts to approach, because that's when I can get my activity going in a big way again, and I love that. Plus, I'm also celebrating because we are on day 2 of the new computer, and so far, every time that we've been using it, there have been no sound drops. So sound has dramatically improved on the show.
Well, we keep making those incremental improvements, and this was a big step forward.
No doubt about it. It really was. And I know that one of the reasons that we are able to make steps forward is because you and I and the other co-hosts and those who are regular practitioners of the law of attraction make it a practice to get ourselves into that positive zone as much as we possibly can. And you had a really interesting post about that on Facebook today, so I thought we could make that the topic of our show. So it's a topic, and it's also a challenge to our listeners. Can we go 24 hours without once complaining? That's a heck of a challenge.
Well, it sounds, when you initially say that, it sounds, oh, well, of course I can do that. But we've discussed this many times, the concept of how our minds have been preconditioned to complain or look for the negative, or almost immediately get into that default negative way of thinking. And it's something that has been handed down generation from generation. And so going an entire day without complaining, it really is a much more monumental task than it really sounds like, because if you think about it, yesterday, for example, I have to be in the mindset. I have one of my vehicles for business is leased, and so I one of the things that I do is I'm always grateful for everything that I have. Well, yesterday, randomly in Virginia, we have a personal property tax that I normally pay on my privately owned vehicle. And so I make a long story short. Yesterday, I received a random, just this random bill for a little over $500 for this personal property tax. So while on some level, I guess I knew it was coming, I had no idea that it was coming, if that makes any sense.
Yeah,
so,
I get it.
Yeah. So, and again, what we do, what most people do, is we get into this version of, oh my God, that, and so I've worked really hard to when things like that come along, to really focus on I'm really grateful to be in a position that surprise bill did not hurt me. It was, I'm in a position to pay it. It was no big deal, but it's still that we have that default way of thinking, and it is a hard thing to reprogram in your brain. And so I didn't complain about it. I got it immediately. In fact, one of the things that I do, I immediately wrote a check for it. I immediately got it into the mailbox, and that, to me, those are things that are just really helpful. Almost excited that I'm in a position to be able to do it. And so I reversed the concept of that negative, oh my gosh, I'm not going to be able to do this, it's going to affect me financially. In reality, it's not. Now, I'm not trying to invite, $500 random bills every day either. So,
no, this is true. We really don't want those to come every day. I actually went through the same thing with the computer, because the computer was about that, around $500. And where my financial situation is right now, $500 is a lot of money. So that was a tough one. And my default reaction was, well, okay, yeah, I can see that, but I've been working so hard on getting this other computer to work functionally, to work the way it needs to, and I've made so much progress with it. And so I kept trying to talk myself out of, taking all of the stress off myself, because I had tremendous amounts of stress that was piling up simply because I wouldn't spring for the new computer. And when I finally did it, I had to talk myself into it. I had to drag myself through it. And then I got it. It's like, oh, boy, that feels so much better. So I put myself through all that hell for nothing. I mean, it was for nothing. Right. It was crazy.
Well, but that's what we do. And that when you see that, that concept of within this, if we can expand on that general concept of not complaining, but almost taking it a little further with not just complaining, but also not worrying. Worrying is an equal, to me, it's in the same concept of complaining. Worry is a woe is me negative concept. I'm going to worry about this. And there is no constructive purpose for worry. It is a phenomenon that I don't know exactly, how or where, and don't want to blame any one group for doing it. But the concept of this worry is, worry is just anticipation of what is bringing about what that's where you're focusing your energy with worry.
It's true. And certainly we don't want to worry about worrying. And I know people who've done that too. In fact, I know that I've done that. Worrying about worrying. I mean, it's bad enough to worry, but to worry about worrying? Oh, jeez.
Right. Well, and it becomes debilitating, and then again, it attracts more of the same into your life. So,
absolutely.
So the complaining, the worry, that mindset of stepping away from that and not allowing, it's just this way of thinking that is so much different than we've always done. Again, using the random $500 bill, that just randomly shows up. The concept of how that can complain, and bring more about is, okay, oh God, now, I was going to have an extra $500 this month. I'm not, now I'm not going to have that. And then you return back to that way of there's a lack or I don't have, the universe is not going to fulfill my need of abundance. And in reality, it has nothing. It's a $500 bill. The world won't come to an end. You'll get more. And I have historically, I've always been amazed at this. I'm expecting something random to come in the mail in the next week or two. I didn't even realize I got more than that money coming randomly. It has been many times. So, I'm certainly not upset with it. And it's a very big beginning of it's the beginning of the year, sort of in the, we're at March, but what a great year I'm already having. I'm going to continue to have a great year, not just in financial stuff, but in the whole concept. So that to me is one of the big changes that I've made. And also one of the things that I've taken a step further, using the same concept of worry and not complaining. As you know, and our audience is probably very tired of hearing this, but one of the things I've cut out is news going on 2 years now. I haven't watched any news. And this week I took it even a step further. I got rid of cable. I don't have anything but internet in my house. So I described it. What I like is I now am in a position to be in charge of my own programming. And I program only, I'm trying out the different streaming services right now. There's one, it's called Sling TV, and you literally can get the smallest package. It has what I want on it. I can control what comes in. My son Justin's he's not a big TV fan. He does a lot of YouTube stuff and video games, so he's not missing anything. So the reason I mentioned that, Walt, is to me, the concept of when we watch the news and then we complain or we worry or we hear this and we get involved in all the drama. Well, I don't know what's going on in the news. I certainly hear other people talking about what's going on in the news. And I laugh because I just stay away from that. It's like, wow, I don't need to do that.
Now, I do have to admit that I do tend to I don't watch the news, but I do check the news out via Google News. I'll just look at the headlines. I won't look at anything, I won't delve down and click and read any of the articles. But I'm doing that because the news headlines, especially these days, especially the political ones, they're just funny. They make me laugh. So, I mean, if I'm actually reading them and I'm finding they're not making me laugh, I'll close it down instantly. But I'm allowing myself just that much attention to the news, just long enough to see what the headlines are, because, I mean, they become sillier and sillier and funnier every day. So, that way of using the news is fine. Any other way you want to stay away from.
Right. Well, and that becomes such an important, an important factor in anything, because I've used the term programming before, but the media and the internet, everything, they're trying to program us into a certain belief, and there's it's out there, and if you buy into it, and this is a sort of a negative view, the metaphysics of the law of attraction, and it supports what they're doing. Actually, they're using the law of attraction in ways, but they're using it in a very addictive way on that other sense of sort of drawing you into this idea that, one thing this with me not following this administration, the current administration in the White House has done, if anything, they've literally changed the news cycle from what used to be almost a 24-hour news cycle to almost a 6-minute news cycle. I mean, just one of the good things is no matter how big their scandal is or alleged scandal, it will only last about 6 minutes, because the next one that comes along is much bigger. It's like, whoa, and so they the friend that was telling me, this concept, he said, you see what, happened, with so-and-so with President Trump. And I'm like, no, and he goes on to explain it. And then a couple of days later, he said, something else. I said, I thought this happened. He goes, oh, you really don't watch the news. He said, that's like 9 things have happened since then. I'm like, wow, I said, that's pretty awesome. So the fact that I didn't take the time to worry about any of them is a benefit.
Yeah, absolutely. So we should probably talk about that side of it too, because the whole point of taking this challenge up of not complaining or not worrying even for 24 straight hours is to have a positive effect on ourselves. So let's talk about that. What kind of effects can we anticipate? I mean, let's put it this way. I'm going to ask you bluntly. Have you gone 24 hours without complaining?
Many 24 hours without complaining. And I find one of the great benefits to it is I now recognize that by not complaining, the momentum of complaining or the momentum of being grateful continues. And it allows me to have a day where I don't have things to complain about. And it isn't that anything's different. I've just conditioned not to complain. And that's important. And I'll have moments when I say that, I'll have moments where I have to catch myself very quickly. And usually they involve traffic situations, as many people have.
Yes.
And one of my trademarks in my profession is I am a huge believer in being on time. I mean, I like to if I'm not 10 minutes early, I'm late in my mind. I need to be on time. I like to be on time. I think that shows respect to everyone. So, when I'm doing that, when I'm on time and life's going pretty well, I feel really good. Well, the other day I had a 7:00 meeting at my office, 7 p.m. meeting, and there's 2 ways to get to my office. One's a little longer, it has a lot of stoplights, and the other is basically an interstate route. And I get to make the decision when I cross over the interstate, and I can go left, which is the longer route, or stay and get on interstate. Well, I happened to be talking to my son, and I forgot to look at interstate. And by the time I got on the entrance ramp, you can't turn back, and it's bumper to bumper.
Ah.
And so now I start finding that I feel that anxiety. I still have plenty of time to get to the office, and I'm having to process with myself. And so I don't allow myself to, because complaining and yelling at the traffic certainly does not help the traffic move along any better. So I do have moments like that, but I don't allow myself to fall into that pattern. And that's very important. When I don't complain during a day, then it sounds so cliche, but I just don't find more things to complain about, because when you remove the complaining filter, you quit seeing the things that create complaints. And I know that's that most people don't get that, but I've used that analogy before. If I tell you not to look for the color red in a room or while you're driving, you automatically are filtering now for the color red. Your brain has been identify red. They just heard the word. And by not complaining, you quit looking for those things on the horizon. The brain quits scanning for things to complain about. And
by the way, I got to thank you there.
Big difference.
I got to thank you there, because as soon as you said that, I was monitoring what's going on with the signals and so forth, and immediately all the red stuff just popped up. So thank you very much for that.
No problem. I just want to throw that out there. So we certainly attract what we think about, right?
Absolutely.
So, but that's it. It's exciting, Walt, that when you understand that the basis of the law of attraction is simply what you're feeling and what you're thinking about is what you're being fed by the universe. And complaining, it doesn't care. All it does is simply say, "Oh, you're complaining. Let's give you more things to complain about."
Absolutely. You mentioned your story about how you accidentally got on the interstate without checking first visually to see what it was like. And it reminded me of a story that occurred while Louise and I were living in Virginia, because, as you know, that's where we never actually met in person, but when I was in Virginia, that's when we met via phone and via the first interview that we did together. And there was one point in time when my brother, who is currently married, but at the time it was his girlfriend's family came to stay, and they're from Trinidad, and among other things, they wanted to go into Washington, D.C., so they came to stay with us because we were about an hour away, so, it made perfect sense, right? So they came to stay, and we had a really lovely 2 or 3 day weekend together. I think it was an extended weekend, or I can't remember exactly what it was, but they were here for a few days, that's the point. And at one point early in the next work week was the day we decided to go into D.C. Well, you know what D.C. is like. You know what the traffic into D.C. is like, and you know what the trains are like. So you know as well as I do, if you want to get a parking space at one of the outside parking lots to ride the metro into D.C., you better get there early. Otherwise, forget it. You're not going to find it. They're just jam-packed. They just fill right up. And we knew that, too.
Yeah.
So, okay, well, we got to do something about that. Well, found out that there are, you know how they have those special spaces right near the front that people pay hundreds or thousands of dollars a month to get? Well, it turns out if those spaces aren't all filled after 10 a.m., anyone can use them. I didn't know that. But I called and found out that was true. I said, oh, well, there's a way we could do it. Well, to make matters even more challenging, shall we say, we had to take 2 vehicles. We couldn't fit everybody into one vehicle. So, okay, now we got to get 2 spots. Okay, this is going to be even more fun. Well, we figured let's apply law of attraction. That's the only way we can be sure we're going to get this. And we are going to try to be there right at 10 a.m. So if there are any spots, we'll grab them. And we'll just have to trust that it's all going to work out. Okay, the day comes, we get in the cars. We're on our way. We're on I-66, and you know how bad that highway gets. Well, we're on I-66, and we're coming into Manassas and just come to a complete stop. Just nothing moving in any direction. And I'm looking at my watch, I'm looking at the clock on the dash, and I'm thinking, ooh, we got to get through this pretty quick, or we aren't going to get there in time, because as soon as 10 o'clock comes, somebody's going to grab whatever spots are available. It's got to be us. So we say, okay, well, everybody is on board in the car. Everybody's on board. We're all trying to attract this. So, okay, universe, you got to deliver a solution to us. And you know what happens? We're sitting in the far left lane. It's like a 6-lane highway, right? So 3 lanes on a side. We're on the far left lane. We can see that there's an entrance ramp or an exit ramp, depending on how you want to look at it. It's one of those exits where you take the exit and there's actually 2 or 3 exits off of it, so it's like a little bypass kind of a thing there, and then you can get back on the highway.
Right.
Well, we can see that that's moving smoothly, and we figure, wow, if we could just get over there, it would be great. So, okay, well, I put my signal on, and you know what? All the cars moved out of our way so we could get over to that place. You never get that. People don't get out of the way on the highway, but every single car moved out of the way. Within like a half a minute, we were over on that access ramp. We drove past all the exits that were there, got back on the highway, and we're flying down the highway. All those other cars were still backed up back there. We get to the parking lot of the first metro station, which is the big one. I'm trying to remember what the name of that particular metro stop is. The Vienna metro stop. And of course, we're running like 5 minutes late. So we're getting there like 5 minutes after 10. I'm thinking, oh, geez, we really need the law of attraction to hold a spot for us because now anybody can grab whatever spots are left. Okay, come on, gotta hold it for us, universe. So we go to, there's parking lots on two sides. We go to the first side, all used up. Okay, the only thing left, go around, drive around the highway to the other side, see if there's anything over there. Now it's like 10:15, 10:20. We get over to that side, and as we're driving toward the gate that you go into to get into where the privileged parking is, we can see there are two spots side by side that are still available. We pull up to the gate and we see two cars ahead of us waiting at the gate, but they're not moving. And one of them, the one who's closest, actually is not up close. They're reading the sign that says the lot is full. And they're just sitting there.
Wow.
So I signaled to my brother who was driving the other car. I said, follow me. We drove around those cars, went through the gate, grabbed the two spots, and went into the metro station. The law of attraction was holding those spots for us.
Wow. I mean, and you see that's stuff that it reinforces that concept that you're talking about, and it's just such a when you live in that, or the other way, if you'd have been that self-defeating attitude, there's no way, then there wouldn't have been a way, and it's just that's the $1 million answer. Sometimes literally $1 million answer in life of what we bring about is what we're truly feeling. When you're really believing that, that's going to be the possibility. It's going to be something that you just sort of put it out there and it was fulfilled.
And I can tell you, even today, I know it isn't true, but I still imagine those two cars sitting at that entrance ramp, the entrance to the gate. I imagine them sitting there to this day, waiting for the sign to be pulled away, saying that the lot is no longer full, and we've gone through there, and we're out, all because we believed, and they didn't believe. They thought they were limited to, oh God, they're probably complaining. I can't believe the lot is closed. I can't believe I can't get in here. There's got to be a way to do this. I can't believe this. Like, why does the lot have to be closed? I'll bet you that's what was going on in their heads. Because that's what the normal reaction is, right? Right. Yeah. Well, and that's such an important moving forward mindset. Not just in when you're expecting and not looking at everything that can go wrong. It just is amazing how these pieces start to fill in. And on the other side of it, when you're looking at everything, oh, wow, there's just no chance of this. And like you said, those cars are sitting there, and they don't realize they missed that opportunity. That's right. It was sitting there. You could even see from the gate, you could see the two spots that were open, but they couldn't see them because their mindset was complain. Right.
Well, and you don't, I do this often. One of the grocery stores that we go to is sort of in my neighborhood, and it is a very busy grocery store. And I have a way that I go sort of the back way to avoid traffic every time. It's probably a little longer, but it certainly is worth it not to hit any traffic. Well, I just drive right to the front. Instead of, looking in the back, no matter how far, I just right to the front. And the majority of times I find something in the first couple of rows. I'm just expecting that. And it's we're talking about parking. We're not, but it plays out through the rest of your life too. It's what your that emotion, that vibration, all that stuff that we keep talking about is very real.
Oh yeah,
and very 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 tangible. And that energy has its own. It just drives you in a way that it's so amazing.
So what happens is When we actually decide to take on, okay, I'm not going to complain for 24 hours, what we're saying here is that not only will we feel better, but things will start happening that didn't happen before.
Yes.
That's basically it, right?
Yes. Well, that and that's what we're bringing about, because the strategy of the strategy of complaining about things has brought a certain amount of continual repetitive things in your life often. Yep. So when you do something differently, there's no other option than different things happen, new things happen. And, it's just, I have multiple examples of people who really, just do this. One of the first things that I do in working with my clients is try to get them to stop complaining, stop filtering, stop anticipating, all this bad stuff. It really is, when you complain about it and you whine about it, is the term I often use. It's putting out there more things to complain and whine about. And when they really buy into that, that becomes one of the quickest ways to change a mindset. I had a person in that it has this huge addiction issue, been dealing with it a long time, and he's been through every therapist in the area, been to multiple treatment centers, and it's very relevant. I'm not trying to minimize what his previous issues were when he was a child in life and how they affect his mindset. But he has this idea that he has no chance of getting better until his previous issues are somehow resolved. And, he's been trying that now for 15 years and it's not working. So he somehow responded greatly to, okay, why don't we separate that? Why don't you continue to work with a therapist on your previous issue? Let's do that. But in your life today, let's stop equating that we can't proceed forward until that's resolved. We can do a dual attack here. We can approach life now with a different attitude, start a new thing, while simultaneously working on that and then putting it behind us. And it's the first time it's ever been presented to him that way, that right now remains in your control. I'm sorry that horrible things happened when you were a child. And I'm not trying to minimize the relevance of those, but as far as right now today, we can individually do this and not complain about what happened to us all those years ago, or complain about the results that I keep getting. And a week after our meeting, he said it's the first real week he has had without any addictive behavior or drug use. And it's starting a new way of thinking for him. And he may get to the point where those past things aren't relevant. Then that's very much something he's going to have to come to. But at least for right now, this is a pretty big step for him of let's move forward, not complain about the past, not complain about the anticipation of everything going wrong. Here I am today. Let's deal with that.
That's very good, because when you do that, if nothing else, even if you're not trying to manifest anything, if nothing else, you're manifesting a good day or a series of good days.
Right.
And how often do we not have those? So being able to do that regularly, that's a huge thing. I mean, because that means, among other things, you're reducing the stress. That's huge. Reducing stress is big. I mean, the medical people will tell us it's big. The personal development people tell us it's big. The athletic trainers tell us it's big. Everybody tells us it's big to reduce stress. Well, there's a great way to do it.
Yeah. Well, and when you focus on right now, it's the mindset that I had, when early in my addiction recovery, and I was facing just incredible, overwhelming, multiple lines of attack, I used to call it. I was facing felony criminal charges. I my credit, owed a fortune in credit card debt. I had nowhere to live, had no vehicle. I mean, just nothing. I had nothing. It was done. And when I looked at the entire picture, I had plenty to complain about. And I wasn't able to see any light at the end of the tunnel, because no matter what I would anticipate me being able to do, there was always 15 more things right behind that was blocking me. And and again, this is before I really understood the law of attraction, but I was able, I guess through just the instinctual nature of it, to say, look, all I can do is one thing at a time. All I can do is, it doesn't do any good to complain about it. Here's where I am. Let's get busy. And I started taking on little pieces of this complex puzzle one step at a time. I let go of the rest. The outcome was irrelevant because it didn't matter, what was going to happen 2 years from now. Mm-hmm. I know people that'll get, they get a letter from the IRS in the mail, and they before they open it, they're already awfulizing it to the very extreme.
I love that word of yours, awfulizing.
Yeah. And you open it up, and I had a guy do this the other day. He calls me and said, things are going really well. I got a letter from the IRS. I owe him $14,000 and the way I pay him. I knew it was going to go back. And he just immediately goes into this downward spiral. So we stopped and said, just take a deep breath. The IRS is, while I'm not a big fan of the IRS. They do work with people. They're very reasonable. I've seen them settle debts and people's situation. And a lot of times it's a misunderstanding. And all this simply was, and just to give a quick explanation of what happened, he sold a bunch of stock. He sold a bunch of stock. And once you sell stock, the end of what you're supposed to do is you put a cost basis on the stock, and then you if it's a profit or loss, you only have to pay tax on the profit, or you take it off your income for the loss. And it's a really easy thing to do. Well, he forgot to include the cost basis. So when he sold the stock, they were taxing him on the full amount of what he sold the stock for.
Ouch. Yeah.
And so it was a simple form. All he had to do was call them. They gave him the form number. He went back and he did a cost basis for it. And it ended up creating for him about a $200 return because he actually lost money on the stock deal. Ah. So but he took it to the extreme, and nothing. Now, there's no such thing as a quick phone call to the IRS, but after about an hour and a half on the phone to the IRS, he was able to reduce or get rid of the debt and make a small profit. So, but we tend to we are conditioned to look for the absolute worst case scenario no matter what.
And by the way, I agreed with what you said, but I have to correct myself. You said that there's no such thing as a quick phone call to the IRS, and I agree with you, but as soon as I said that, I realized, well, no, actually that's not true. There have been times where I have made a call, and I made sure I got myself into a good place before I made the call, and the whole call, including the wait time, took less than 15 minutes. So it is possible.
And that's a really good point. Yes, and in fact, I shared that a month or so ago with my son. When my son, who I adopted, I had to go on a Monday morning to Social Security and change his Social Security card. And I walked in with a great attitude. I had prepared. I wasn't going to put myself in a state of being rushed. I took the entire morning off. Everybody was very pleasant. I walked in. I had something to listen to, put my headphones on, and I was in and out in no time, which is unheard of. Mm. But again, I went in with that right attitude. And I've had other situations too where you do that, and that's a really good point. The only reason I say it's no such short thing to a short call with IRS. For me, it isn't been that people haven't been very helpful. It's just it normally takes a little while to get to the right person who can help you. Mm. Well, it's because they're busy, and usually the first person that answer isn't the person that can really help most of the time. But I have generally found, as I was saying, they're very reasonable every time I've ever worked with them.
Mm. And I got to tell you, those times when I've called, now I have to admit, I don't always get myself into that good frame of mind before I call the IRS. In fact, I try to call the IRS as infrequently as possible. But on those rare occasions where I have gotten myself into the good frame of mind, I usually don't get bounced around. In fact, on those occasions, it's usually the first person who picks up who can help me, which is,
that's good.
I understand what you mean. It's just that's what actually happened.
Well, that's your reality, and I hope that becomes my reality. The problem that I have, that I've experienced, is usually the people, and I'm usually working on behalf of somebody else, like a client with IRS problems. So usually these are not really simple things. Yeah. I mean, these are usually very complex cases that I almost always end up with like a special unit that will work with us. And so that becomes getting them to see that. But either way, I mean, the idea that I don't view the call to the IRS as a brutal thing, I do allow time for it, because if I don't allow enough time for it, then I set myself up to, get stuck.
Yes.
So, yes. But those are all things that, it doesn't do any good to complain. It's like the weather, discussing the weather. One of my things I laugh at is on a really cold day. I mean, I go to the gym every day, and I know the front desk people pretty well, and I laugh because on a cold day, everybody walks in and says the exact same thing. Ooh, it's really cold out there.
Yep.
So can you imagine sitting at a desk with 500 people walking in and all saying it's really cold out there?
Yes.
Like, and I could always laugh. And so this one girl, one day I asked her, I said, what do you think I'm about to say? And she said, you're about to say it's really cold out there. And I said, no, I'm not. I said, good morning. And it was funny because she had just been, she said, yes, the fact that I see the snow blowing sideways through the front door, I can deduce that it is pretty cold out there. But you also are stating the obvious, and it just makes it, the idea that when that becomes the weather is the weather, and my complaining about it is certainly not going to change it, but it is going to make me focus on the discomfort of it more if I'm making that my main thing.
You know what would be a fun experiment to do in that case? To walk into the office and first thing you say to the person is, boy, I'm looking forward to the warm weather.
Yeah.
Completely different way of looking at the same phenomenon.
Yeah. Well, I know in the summer when it gets really hot, one of the things that I have on my computers, I can change my screensaver to different things, and and everybody can. I realize that, and when I have a really beautiful picture of a place I used to work at here in Richmond, a beautiful piece of property, and I took it and it was covered in snow, and it smoke coming from the chimney. It's almost a postcard, probably better than a postcard picture. And I took it with my phone, so I have that. In the dead of in the dead of summer, that's my screen. I like to look at that and remember the coolness and how brisk it was.
Sure. And
in the dead of winter, I have a picture of me, sitting on the bench down at the beach and overlooking the Gulf of Mexico. And again, I don't focus on what the port is wrong. I look at what the next step is. And weather doesn't bother me. It doesn't affect me. And I don't let it do that. And it's just, but all that is that complaining, that built-in concept is such it is so conditioned, and it also invites such negativity into your life.
Oh yeah, it does. No doubt about it. So let's try to look at the positive for a moment and just get a sense of what it feels like and what the impact is. Like when you have a good day, talk about what it's like on a good day, and a good day is one where you're deliberately avoiding any opportunity to complain. They pop up perhaps, but you just don't bite into it. What happens to your day? How does that play out?
Well, the days go seamlessly. I don't feel stress. I don't feel, complaining. It brings stress. It is an inherent part of stress, and I bring humor to the equation. To me, the day goes more fulfilling. It feels very fulfilling. I feel very accomplished in a day where I don't complain. I don't dread going to work. I don't complain about it. And those are the things that I just feel uplifted, and it invites more of that into my life. So, I'm looking forward to today. I got an exciting day ahead of me today. I got to work. I have, I don't have to work. I get to go to work. That's how I tend to look at it. I have, I have a couple of things I need to do that I'm not really looking forward to, but I know just because they're no big deal, it's just things I need to do. So I'm not going to complain about them. I'm just going to go do them. And, it is that mindset of sort of being excited. And what I believe, Walt, and what it isn't that how it affects today as much as how it affects the overall view of everything. It really increases my satisfaction of life. I love my life, and I do that because I don't have things to complain about in my life. There's nothing that I choose to complain about.
That's a good thing.
So the fact that it increases the satisfaction of life, I wish I wish I could say 92.6%, but I don't have a way of measuring it. But it really does increase my satisfaction in life a great deal.
Oh yeah, I think it is bound to. And in fact, my goal lately, I've been the last 12 days, I've been doing what's called mirror work. You know, where you look in a mirror every day and you say, "I love you" to the image, and you're looking right in your own eyes and so forth. And you say, "Here's all the good things that are going on. Here's why I love you. Here's why I am so happy with what you're doing," and so forth. To basically give yourself good, positive messages to start your day off. I started doing that because Jack Canfield, of course, the author of the Chicken Soup for the Soul series, as well as one of the contributors on The Secret, said that when he did it for like a 30 or 40-day period, his negative self-talk ended entirely. I thought, whoa, I want that one, because if you got no negative self-talk going on, you're not going to be doing all that much complaining. You're going to actually stop complaining entirely, right? So I figured I want to start doing that.
Oh, wow. And I love the idea of those are tools that, you know, that there's a lot of people that, you know, we can do a show on this one day, but about the concept of tapping, you know, tapping when you have things to complain about, or you have emotional things, or you have fear going on. There's a technique it's sort of based on acupuncture, but you just you tap what they call meridians in your body, mainly in your head area and some on your arms. And you do that while thinking about, you know, you're releasing the anxiety by doing that. So the mirror stuff or the tapping, these are all techniques that can help you get to a place where it's, you know, since there is zero value in worry, there is zero value in worry. There is zero value in complaining. In fact, it has negative value in complaining. You know, learning to just not do that. And the key to all of this, everything we're talking about, you touched on it, is this inner dialogue. This inner dialogue, what you tell yourself picks yourself up or it knocks yourself down. That's all it does. And it's really big. It's such an incredible distinction between, you know, the complaining world or the celebrating. You know, the opposite of complaining is celebrating, is anticipation. I'm looking forward to this. I can make anything exciting. I'm shocked at the things I've made exciting in my life. You know, having lunch with a friend today. I've had lunch with a friend, but this is a really uplifting guy that I'm having lunch with. I'm really looking forward to that.
That's great. Yeah, that's fantastic. The thing too, I've noticed on those days where I managed to keep myself in that positive frame of mind and basically put my hand up, no thank you, anytime I get the opportunity to complain or worry about something, just staying on the positive place and feeling good and so forth. Those are the days where everything clicks. You know what I mean? Like everything works out. You sit down to do something at the computer and it works flawlessly, seamlessly. There are no things that say, oh, geez, you know, the computer just crashed or I couldn't get the email to go. None of that happens. It just, everything works. Right. And then you go on to, you know, right. you go out, you do some shopping and you get the best parking spot and the store clears out of the way so that you get to right where you want to go to first. You go to the checkout line and the checkout line is open because you got there. And then it's just one thing after another that keeps working well simply because I got myself into a good frame of mind and I stood there and I stayed there. Right. And just in that process of standing there and staying there, more good things continue to happen. And they're little things. We're not talking about my major dreams coming true all at once. That's not what I'm talking about. It doesn't happen that way. I'm talking about just like little things go right. And then another thing goes right, and another thing goes right. And at the end of the day, I say to myself, wow, that was a pretty good day.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's how you sort of come along with it. And the more you don't complain, then the more you see these are really good days. Then it's like anything else. Complaining is a habit, and it's ingrained. But you can also, but not complaining can become ingrained. Celebrating can be ingrained. And you know, I've had someone that said recently, well, you know, that's not realistic, not complaining. And I go, well, you're complaining about not complaining now. You know, the idea that it's not realistic is, of course it is. It's just part of it. I'm not asking people to have a false view of the world. I'm asking people to have the positive view of the world. Life has events that happen. There are things that are happening. a lot of times these events are actually moving you to the next part of your life. And so they seem uncomfortable at first, but you get to a point, no matter what happens, that you can accept where we're at and not take it to the worst conclusion possible. Let's don't do that.
I remember about, I'm going to say 2 to 3 weeks ago, Louise and I went to it's sort of a Southeast Asian, it's not just Chinese, it's like Thai and a variety of Southeast Asian country food styles that this particular place offers in Granby, which is just north of us. And we went there, had our dinner, and while we were talking about LOA and about what it is we're trying to attract into our lives, and we were doing some visualizing on a house that we want to get and some other stuff. And an interesting thing happened on the way home. After we did that, we had a good meal, we were in a good mood, and so on and so forth. Got into the car and started driving, and I didn't notice what was happening until about 3/4 of the way through. There are 15, I counted them, there are 15 traffic lights between that place and home. And do you know what? We hit green on every single one of them. And I thought to myself, wow, that was pretty wild. Now, I could have justified that as like a coincidence, right? It was just like a one-off. Well, the next time we went was about a week later. We went to the same restaurant. And we did the same thing. We talked about, all these things we're trying to attract. And you know what? We had green lights all the way home the second time. And I can hardly wait for the next time that we go, because I'm sure as long as we stay in that positive frame of mind, we're going to have green lights, all 15 lights, all the way home on the third time. I mean, it's just an amazing thing.
That's when you see that absolutely working in your benefit. That you see that you see how this stuff is taking place. It's sort of putting you in a place of not only just being successful, but you are now anticipating when you go, you're actually looking forward to it over something as you're finding joy in something as simple as getting all the lights, which is the whole point. And it all comes together. And we're here in this world for whatever period of time we're here for. And so much when you waste it worrying, or you figure out how to make a simple trip like you're talking about exciting, either one's valid.
It is valid.
And you're in charge of which one it is. So, that's the piece that that I gather when you tell that is you've made something really cool out of something that most people would find pretty benign.
In fact, the other thing is I wasn't trying to, quote, attract it, unquote, because that's what, when we're learning to be deliberate creators, that's what we're trying to do, right? We usually do it with the small things. We figure, I can make it happen with a small thing better than a big thing. Not that there's any real difference, but we believe that there's a difference, so there is one. And so we say, I'm going to attract that parking place, or, I'm going to attract that green light, or I'm going to attract, that meeting up with somebody unexpected or whatever. We try to do that. Well, I wasn't trying to do that. Walt and I had no concept of trying to get green lights. What made the difference wasn't that we tried to attract it, it's that we were feeling good. We were in alignment, as Abraham says. We were in alignment with our inner being. And as a result, good things happened. Not because we deliberately asked for it, simply because the universe knew, Walt and Louise are going to love it if we can give them a free trip all the way home without having to stop. That's great. Yeah.
And that, see, to me, this is the beauty of what you're describing, Walt. This is so nice that this abundance, this feeling, you where we miss it a lot of times is we really start to believe that, trying to get the concept down of, I got to deliberately attract a specific thing. Like, you didn't attract the light, your mindset attracted the lights. Does that make sense?
Yes.
And to me, that's the beauty of where we're at. You are in a position right now where you're attracting the overall emotion is what you're attracting. And I see people get so stuck on the wrong things. And I just like the idea that, I'm attracting what I'm putting out there, and I'm going to continue to attract what I put out there. And it will manifest. If I just sit there and just solely make it I can make if I'm going to, when I leave here, I got to go to work. If I'm like, okay, I'm going to really I want to really get those lights today. I mean, I'm really excited. If I make that big of a deal, it's going to have an opposite effect. I become worried about it.
Yes. The worry is what kills you. So one more reason why it's such a good idea to go through an entire day, 24 hours, without complaining or worrying. I probably should have added the word worrying to the title of this, shouldn't I?
Yes. Well, to me, it is the complaining and worrying. They're bedfellows, because the complaining and worrying, you complain about it. You're not going to complain about something you're not worried about.
That's true. That's true. I'm trying to think, under what circumstance would I complain about something that I don't worry about? And I don't think there is one.
Right. And that's my, that's my view of it all is, the complaints are usually attached to worry.
Yeah, they are.
And so that's why they go together. So when you're not worrying and you're really living in this, things feel pretty good right now. That's what you're inviting. And the other way is that worry, and that, it is to me, it's the most defeating part of, it's a negative inner dialogue, but it really is the underlying factor that defeats most people in this.
Yes.
In the law of attraction.
Yeah, sure, because once the doubts creep in, here's the formula, isn't it? The doubts creep in, so we start to worry. And then as we worry, things, we don't attract what we're wanting to attract, and so we complain about it. So there's the sequence right there, right? That's it, in a nutshell. And that's how we get stuck, because if you look at, if a scientist were to put this into a formula and simply say, here's how this happens, just like you're saying, we almost scan the horizons. What's out there to, things are going to happen, or I'm anticipating the negative, or I'm using historical thought of things that have happened. I'm going to worry about that. And then it just leads, one step leads to another. And then I'm so worried this, and then it leads to a defense mechanism of complaining. And so it's almost like, let's put that whole combination, imagine that same energy put toward the positive. That's a lot of energy focused on a negative event. Yeah. Or your perception of an event that makes it negative. And because you're firing it from different angles, whereas, that positive thought, if you could apply that reverse technology, so to speak, on I'm excited about whatever this is. And really start to live in that. I'm looking forward to this, and I'm looking forward to the challenge that comes with this. And I've always dealt with every challenge that comes along, so I want to be able to handle this. And I'm not going to worry about it. In fact, I'm going to embrace whatever that next step is. You become someone who you have that awakening, that moment where you're going, wait, I really am good at this. I really am not worried about it. And a lot of times it's fake it till you make it, but then you get to that point of like, wow, I'm really here. And that's a good feeling too, when you get really here like that, as you said, and you, or even as you're on your way to here, even if you're not there yet, you can feel the progress after a while. When you feel that progress, it starts to reinforce that, well, this stuff is really good stuff. I keep going back to that formula, though. Doubt, worry, complain, one leading to the other. Yep. Well, let me raise a question here, because I think I know what I think the answer is. I want to see what you say. If you focus on going through a non-complaining, non-worrying day, you don't worry about the doubt so much. You just say, okay, I'm not going to complain. I'm not going to worry. I'm just going to keep my mind on happy stuff, on stuff that I like, on stuff that feels good. Now, Abraham Hicks teaches us that a belief is a thought that we think over and over again. And doubt is clearly a form of belief. So here's the question. Do you need to focus on just staying positive as a way to remove doubt? Because we certainly don't want to be thinking about doubt. We don't want to be focusing on doubt, because that just reinforces it. So is it possible that just by focusing on feel good, the doubt goes away?
I think so. I think because if you're in that truly positive state, then doubt has no room. I tell people that you can't be grateful and depressed at the same time. You know, it's almost a similar type thing. You can't be in that really positive state and doubt things are going to work out. They don't occupy the space at the same time. Truly grateful isn't worried about that anticipatory stuff. And that's such a factor here that I want, at least, you know, as I live in my environment, I want desperately to live in this place where, yeah, I don't have to do that anymore. And when I say desperately, I desperately love positivity. I crave it. I want it because I've had such success with it that I use it in a way that is like, oh my gosh, I can't be grateful the way I am. I can't be positive the way I am and live in a doubt world. They don't coincide simultaneously.
Yeah, they
so
certainly.
I say the answer to that question is yes.
Yeah, they certainly don't have the same vibration, to use another Abraham term. They don't have the same feel to them at all. So I think you're right. And that's the conclusion I draw as well. I would draw it in part from my own experience, that the more that I stay in a good place all day long, the more that the doubts, I should say, the plural doubts that I have had and that I have experienced, they're still around, but they lessen. They're getting weaker and weaker over time. And one of the reasons I love doing this mirror work now, and believe me, when I first started, I hated the idea because I did not like the idea of looking in the mirror at my own eyes and saying, I love you. That was just like the most creepy thing I could think of to do. But after I got through the first couple days of it, it's actually, I can see how it's been a good thing. I actually don't have any problem with it now. 12 days later, it's become really easy to do. And in the process of going through that, I can see the doubts are starting to shrink. They haven't gone yet, but they're shrinking. They're going away. Yes. And that's a great thing, because once those doubts are gone, then man, everything starts coming in. There's no more resistance left.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's that $1 million answer.
It is.
It really is. It's an answer that keeps everything fresh in your mind. It's all that uplifting stuff that when you're feeling that way, there's doubt and they diminish, and then the less they are there, the more power the other has over. And that's how these things go away. It gets to a point where there isn't a doubt. Now I may not know how I'm going to do something, but I don't doubt that I can do something now.
Right.
That's just how I live.
Yeah.
And so I don't waste any energy on, I wonder if that's going to work out okay or not. And it's, you know, and I know it's going to work out. There's no way you can keep doing this all these years and overcome and then be surprised when it keeps working out. So, you know, wow, this is going to work out. I got it. I don't need to worry about it.
Quoting the movie, The Best Exotic Marigold Hotel, everything is going to work out in the end. And if it's not all right, then it's not yet the end.
Right. And it's just that there's just nothing that can put you in a position to, the only failure I think is I view failure as a positive, but most people's definition of failure is if you're still here, if you're still breathing and you're still alive and you can't have failed. You can't, it's an ongoing process. It's not done. And, you know, we're still in the fight, so to speak. As long as I'm still here, it's not over. And I've seen, and I've lived through stuff, as you know, that just puts us in that, there's no doubt in my mind that's going to work out.
That's a good thing, too. Well, the only thing that doesn't work out that I know of is that we always run out of time, and here we are running out of time once again. But before we leave, I just wanted to give you a chance to let people know, how do people reach you if they want to have a little direct, personal, one-on-one coaching?
Well, I can be, my website is joelelston.com. I can be reached that way. I'm also on Facebook, Joel Elston. That's JoelElston. I have a practice in Richmond, Virginia. I work with people all over the country. And I'm also the author of a book called The Bench. It's available on Amazon.
Sounds
so any of those ways will get me.
All right. Joel, it's been a pleasure. Let's do it again next week.
All right, Walt, great to talk to you, my friend.
We'll see you all next time here on LOA Today. Goodbye, everybody.